When you're revising for your legal studies exam, it's important to look at multiple choice and realise that's 20 marks that you could be getting. You can take a stab in the dark and say you're going to get a 1 in 4 chance of getting it right because it is multiple choice after all. But we know that everyone gets caught up when there's a little word there that you just don't know the meaning of, and it could throw you to the answer A or is the answer C. So it's important to know these kinds of words, and I'm going to show you how you can start revising the words by tackling them front on when you can't really get your head around them and what they mean. And these are the ones that I struggled with most. I asked some of my students what they struggle with most as well, and that's how I came to this list. But go ahead and study on top of this as well. Let's start with the Latin first of all. People get really confused with this. Mens rea and actus reus. These are important when looking at strict liability offences because actus reus is all that needs to be proven. Actus reus, ACT, the act, is the guilty act. Mens reus, starting with MEN, relates to the mentality. Mentality, mens rea, is what did that person have a guilty mind? The other Latin word that people get thrown with a little bit more is just cogens, which doesn't come up a lot in the legal course, but it does when we're relating to international law for that little section of the syllabus. Or if you're studying world order, it might come up again then as well. Just cogens is essentially the fundamental basis of the morally accepted laws of the international world. So they are the very, very basis of everything that goes on on top of that, on top of treaties, on top of documents. It all starts on the basis of just cogens. Then I find that my students get really, really caught up with words starting with R because there are a lot of them. Ratification, reoffending, recidivism, and so forth. Recidivism is another word for reoffending. The Australian legal system tries to prevent recidivism or reoffending when people go to jail, for example, by providing them with the tools that they need to pursue education or work afterwards so that they don't relapse into a series of crime. Another word starting with R, ratification. And this is the next step after we sign an international document, we need to ratify it because Australia has a dualist system where we sign documents, then we need to ratify them into law, unlike a country like France, which has a monist system, meaning as soon as they sign an international document, it immediately comes into law. Another word starting with R, remand and bail. And often they will throw both of these answers into a multiple choice question and you've got to know the difference between the two, and that's all you need to know to understand the answer. Bail is where someone is allowed to live their life outside of jail in some capacity while they're awaiting trial. Remand is where someone is deemed to be a danger to society and they're kept in jail even before they've been proven guilty as they await for their trial. If they are found guilty at the end of their trial and they are sentenced to time in jail, the time they've spent in remand will usually be taken off the time of their overall sentence they have to spend afterwards. Two other words people get confused with, situational and social crime prevention. Why have they both got to start with S? Situational crime prevention is where someone is trying to prevent a crime in the situation of it happening. So maybe a higher police presence or people walking around with security cameras to imply that in the situation of someone committing a crime, they're not going to anymore. Social crime prevention happens much, much earlier in life a lot of the time, usually talking about drug rehabilitation, anger management issues, intervening so children are in school rather than staying out of school. These are social crime preventions that happen earlier to help people towards a path where they're less likely to commit crime. It's really important that if you don't understand a word, now is the time to revise it and go forward, because so often in legal studies, words sound similar, but they can really throw you off when it comes to multiple choice. And this is exactly how you should be studying for multiple choice, so you can make sure you're doing them with accuracy. Thanks for listening.